Hi guys, this is Sarah Elise. I'm an astrologer in Toronto, Canada, and this is a newsletter for my community on September the 16th, 2020. Um, this is a really interesting new moon that we're having in just a few hours from now. Approximately 6 in the morning on September 17th, we'll have a new moon in Virgo at 25 degrees. The new moon this month is opposite Neptune, and it's making a direct square to Saturn and Pluto and a wide square to Jupiter. So it's bringing in the Capricorn Stellium in a really positive way, though. There's a nice, productive, earthy, structured resonance to this new moon. It's very practical. It's very real. There's a lot of reality in this new moon. However, the Neptune influence with the Neptune opposite is asking us to get real on the kind of real we're aligning to. What illusion are you buying into? What is the version of reality? Is it a spiritual reality or is it a delusory reality? Sort of, it's a little bit tricky. It's always tricky when Neptune plays with the sun and moon, because Neptune is one of these archetypes that is a reflector. So it reflects and amplifies whatever frequency we're at. So when we're playing at a lower frequency and we're kind of creating reality with our lower mind and we're imagining ourselves to be, then Neptune can amplify that and make our imagination even more powerful. And we can be really creative and create this like pseudo reality. It's almost like an artificial reality, but which is great. We all need artificial realities where novelists are inspired and filmmakers, are overcome with some kind of an incredible idea that they want to bring out into the world. But when our frequency or our vibration is higher, and when it's attuned in a very specific way to Neptune. Neptune is the gate to God. Neptune is the gate to source. Neptune is divine love. It's divine light, and it's divine inspiration. So you can tune yourself to Neptune in different ways, right? You can use her energy in different ways depending on you. You are, as Stephen Forrest puts it, Neptune is a lens, and how clearly the light shines through Neptune depends on how clear you are. So this new moon in Virgo is about clarity of self, clarity of intent, clarity of beingness, in order to reflect that universal light as clearly and as cleanly as we can, and bring it into manifestation, the trine between the Capricorn and the Virgo, to bring it into form, right? To be very specific about who we are, to bring ourselves into form in alignment with the spiritual, if possible for us, or whatever, in alignment with whatever it is we are choosing to dream, because there's no right or wrong. There's just different frequencies that we can play at. And one of the interesting components of this new moon is that it's directly squaring the nodal axis. So our nodes right now are in Sagittarius and Gemini. We have a south node in Sag and a north node in Gemini, and they're at 24 degrees. And the sun and the moon at 25 Virgo will be exactly in square to them. So I wanted to reflect just for a moment on what that nodal axis seems to be saying in the collective, because the nodes always connotate the collective karmic field that we're working through. I guess all of humanity, we go through these waves of karmic evolution, and those are dictated by the nodal axis. So right now we're playing on the collective, in the collective minefield. We're playing in this sort of construct of, I know the truth, I'm right, versus, wow, I don't really know much of anything, but I'm sure open-minded enough to learn, and I'm willing to share with you what I think and listen to you at the same time. Have you guys noticed that? Have you noticed that argument playing out on the kind of social media sphere? This this polarization between the self-righteous indignation of being correct about something or having some truth that someone needs to share and ram down your throat, versus the opposite, which is the sort of the karmic remedy of the collective evolution, which is all around equality and connection and really listening. It's also about collecting actual data and trying to understand these truths and to pull them apart and to look at the different components that make them up so that we can actually see whether they're true or not, and that there's an open dialogue about that, and to realize that as many perspectives as we're able to access, that's better for us in the long run, because we'll be able to support a real truth and come to a collective agreement on what is true, rather than just taking someone's top-down dictation, right? So the sun and the moon are squaring the nodes, and anything square to the nodes is always indicating kind of like a really important evolutionary hotspot for those planets and for the collective. So there's something about, you know, getting ourselves right. There's something about being really, really clear on who we want to be, being very specific and discerning on how we want to present ourselves or how we want to move into this next month. And I also feel like that's being somewhat reflected by the Mars retrograde in Aries that came in about 6 days ago. Mars went retrograde in Aries. Now, Mars in Aries has been there since the end of June, and it's going to take us all the way through to the end of 2020. But when that retrograde hit, I really felt it. And like I feel like the retrograde, the last 6 days have been kind of this initiatory, involutionary kind of look at will force, and like how will and how primacy of self is playing out inside the organism, and especially in relationship to structures that no longer serve the organism. Right? It's the square to the Capricorn Stellium. So in other words, let me put this into like English so people understand. Mars, since the end of June, we've had this beautiful Mars in Aries, like a teenage boy running around, wanting to be free, having a great time, having a party. Now in mid-August, he squared Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn in Capricorn for the first time. And we had this square that came in to create this kind of this argument or this conflict between the primacy of the free self and the structures and the social hierarchies and the rules and regulations of the ways that we need to be in order to make sure that everybody's safe, right? You know, an example of this might be all of the arguments that have been going on around mask wearing, okay? Whether or not, whatever side you're on, there's been a lot of anger and a lot of loud voices yelling about themselves having the right to their own sovereignty, their own freedom, their own being, in the wake of this collective reality that we're all facing into, right? That's just one example of how the Mars in Aries, this impulse to freedom, this impulse just to be ourselves, has to subjugate itself and somehow kind of collaborate with, in a square to the Capricorn Stellium, has to negotiate with the society and with like with the rules and with the restrictions and with the boundaries and all of that. So the last 6 days since Mars went retrograde, I've been really like feeling like in my I felt it immediately. It was super, super strong. It really hit me. So it's kind of been like, almost like double backed into myself. And I've been doing a lot of meditation around it. And what I've gotten, or what's come through for me around this Mars retrograde, is that, you know, since the whole Capricorn conflagration of interesting energy started at the beginning of 2020, when this whole thing started to come in, and over the past, you know, whatever it's been now, 8 months, we have been like slowly kind of taking down the structures or the structures around us and the structures within us. So all of the things that we've used to keep ourselves feeling safe, or all the normal things that we were relying on every day to prop us up and make us feel good, and all the habits and all the limitations we would put on ourselves, and all the things that we would do, the status quo stuff, has really, really fallen apart externally and internally, right? And so as this has happened, and as this continues to happen, because right now we still have Pluto and Saturn in retrograde. Now Jupiter just went direct a couple days ago, I think on the 13th. So there's this new fresh energy that's kind of moving this ahead, but still we have Pluto and Saturn in retrograde. So we're still doing the deconstruction. We're still doing the dissolution. We're still taking apart all this reality as we have known it up until now. We are taking it down, right? And so the Mars coming into Aries has given us this compulsion to be free within this structure. And what I'm feeling in my meditations is that there's this part of me that is like super aware of all the shadow material or whatever it is, like all the ways that I have been before that I thought were me but aren't, like all the things in me that feel icky or that don't feel like they're working, the beliefs that I used to have, the ways that I used to like make myself feel good. You know, I am this, so that means that I'm worthy, or I can do this, so that means I'm important, or I own this thing and that means I matter, like, or I can have relationships like this and that feeds me in this certain way, or whatever it might be, or I can, you know, whatever. Doesn't, whatever thing you have structured and constructed around yourself to keep yourself feeling good. I mean, we all do it. We all do it. A lot of it's inherited, by the way. A lot of we get it from our mothers and fathers. We get it from society, and we make it up ourselves. Like, we're all complicit. But all of that stuff is kind of up for negotiation. It's kind of all coming down. And since Mars went into retrograde, it's been like there's a feeling of wanting to go very, 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 very deep into myself, right? Into the Aries, the self, and find this connection between my consciousness, my conscious self, and my deep primal will. And to create like a really strong connection to that deep primal will that I am. And to pull that will all the way up through all the dissolving forms. So the image that keeps coming to my mind is that we are inside, socially and personally, we're inside of a falling building. So our building is falling down, the walls are crumbling, there's rubble, there's destruction. The building is still standing, but it's coming down around us. We can't leave the building, right? We can't leave the building. We have to stay put. So who are we going to be within this building? Who are we going to be? How are we going to act? Where is our will going to come from? Because if there's one thing that I know just through my studies and through my experiences, will is absolutely primary to who we are. Like at some point, we are just pure consciousness, but the way that that consciousness moves into reality, into human reality, is through our will force, right? So will and connecting with your will, which is Mars, will, is really important. And more important perhaps than connecting with it is knowing what to do with it, making a decision about what to do with it, where to put it, right? What feels right? What are we creating with our will? What are we intending? What are we inseminating into the reality, right? We are impregnating our lives all the time based on our will and where it's coming from. So here we are in this fallen building, and here's Mars retrograding in Aries, asking us, wow, okay, wait a second, take a look at where you've been applying your will and all the different places that Nope, that probably isn't where you should be putting your will force. Nope, that's maybe not really good for you. Why don't we why don't we take our will back from all these different places that we've put it and all the different places we've decided to make important in our lives? And why don't we take this moment in time to kind of reconnect our will in its primacy? So the archetype of Aries is about the instinctual self. So it's the self that exists without any conditioning, before conditioning, okay? Capricorn is the conditioned self. So can we assert our will within the conditioned self to find that beautiful sweet spot where we don't lose our freedom, even though we're inside of a shit show? Because it's a little strange out there right now. But anyway, even within the self though, can we find our own will force? Can we find our primacy of will? Can we find our strength of will that exists beyond the conditioned self? And then can we hold that will within the conditioned self? Because the conditioned self, we're still being we're still coming apart, right? Like none of us really know what's going to happen around the corner. Like we're heading into some Aquarius energy. We're cruising on out of here at the end of 2020, right? Something's going to change. But in the meantime, if any of you have ever gone through a Pluto transit, you really have to ride it to the end. Like it's just, there's no way of knowing what's on the other side or what's going to happen when you bust out of that cocoon until you actually bust out of the cocoon. So that's going to happen. I mean, in my opinion, that's going to happen in 2023 when Pluto exits Capricorn. But in the immediate future, when Saturn and Jupiter cross over into Aquarius at the beginning of January, we're going to have a real change in energy. So anyway, back to this new moon. I feel like the impetus from the Virgo sun and moon opposite the Neptune and trining and sextiling the Capricorn stellium is it's giving us a suggestion, because a new moon is always a suggestion, right? Like it's the start of one of the next sine wave. It's the start of the next impulse. If the goddess is dreaming us this month, her dream is a dream of Virgo opposite Neptune trining the stellium in Capricorn. So this is the next inhalation, in-breath. And we get to just move on this current for the next 29 days. So the suggestion, in my opinion, is that we take a very careful look about who we are and where we're creating from and what we are creating and why we are creating, so that the seed of our creation is good. Virgo is the seed that is good. It is the pregnant virgin mother. It's the womb that holds the Christ. It's the womb that holds the enlightened self. It is the absolute holiest sign of the zodiac, Virgo, because it brings the spirit into the form. So if you can get in touch with, like, what are the things that are standing in your way of being your absolute best self, your absolute most immaculate, pure self, and what do you need to create in your life this month to make sure that that best self comes forward? Are you even in touch with it? Can you feel your best self? Can you touch base with you? Can you make yourself matter enough to kind of have a little bit of self-analysis, right? And self-care and self-consideration. And from that place, like from that inverted spot, can you feel the primacy of your will? Can you feel if it's in or out of alignment? Is there any work you need to do to reconnect with your will force? What's standing in your way? What are the structures that are in your way from feeling that passionate you that is underneath all of the identities that were given to you and that you adopted throughout your lifetime? So it's actually quite a powerful new moon psychologically. And I think leading us up to a really interesting month as well, if we take this opportunity to plant some seeds of purification and some seeds of self-improvement and some seeds of humility and some seeds of self-care. And as we cross into the month of Libra, like our full moon will be in Libra, And we'll be heading into Libra probably around September 23rd, I think it is this month. So the sun is changing to Libra. So the energy is going to be about relationships, equanimity, balance and harmony and peace and beauty with the environment around us. So the more in touch we are with our humility and our grace, the better our relationships with the outer reality are going to be. Always, we create outside of us a reflection of what we are on the inside. So this is a lovely time to plant the seeds of purification and goodness inside of you, so that we can celebrate at the full moon of Libra all of the beautiful ways that we've created beauty and harmony and great relationships with people over the next couple weeks. Okay, so remember to plant your seeds and set your intents, and leave a comment for me if this was at all interesting to you. And we'll talk to you guys. We'll talk to you really soon. Okay, bye bye.